Hello, this is Victoria Dangerfield. I'm filming this for EDU 642 at Georgetown College. I have my husband with me today, and I'm going to be teaching him how to use the Scratch program. He's never used Scratch before, so we're going to be using Scratch today to create a story, specifically a narrative. So with a narrative, it can be either a true story or a made-up story. And I want you to be able to kind of explore your creativity today. So I'm going to let you come up with a completely made-up story in Scratch. So just to kind of review a little bit, what are some things that you feel like all stories should have in them? What are some elements that every narrative or every story should have? So after I asked Paul this question about what he thought every story should have, we just discussed for a few minutes, and he decided that all narratives should have characters, they should have a setting, they should have interaction between characters and character development, and they should also have a plot. So your story should have a clear beginning, middle, and end. So when you open the Scratch program, this is what it looks like. This is a blank project, and you are going to be adding to it. So the first, or one of the things that we talked about when we talked about all the things that a story should have are characters. I like to relate the characters in Scratch to these guys right here. These are called sprites, and you can, it automatically gives you a cat, but you can add different sprites. Right here where it says new sprite, if you hover over it, it'll say choose sprite from library, and I'll go ahead and let you click on that. And then literally they have tons and tons of different sprites that you can choose from, and sprites are the things that you can actually animate in your project and make them move and talk and do different things. So they've got different animals, people, mythical creatures like dragons, instruments. I mean, there's everything. And then there's also letters down at the end. So sprites are going to be our characters, and I'm going to let you go through in a minute and choose who you want your characters to be. Another thing that we talked about that's really important for all stories is the setting, or where it happens. And the settings in Scratch I like to relate to the backdrops that you can choose from. So you can see right now you just have a plain white backdrop. But down here at the bottom, you see where it says new backdrop. If you click that one right there, it'll show you lots of different backdrops or settings that you can choose from. So again, we'll scroll through these in just a minute and let you choose where you want your story to take place. Scratch is really neat because you can actually, if you want to, like right here, download your own sprites from your computer. You can take pictures straight from your camera and even have yourself as a sprite. And you can even draw your own, and it's the same with the backgrounds. You can draw your own, you can download one from your computer, or you can take a picture of something that you want to be a background. So the other thing that we talked about that was really important in a story are the interactions between the characters, the dialogue, and then the actual plot. To cause your sprites to interact with each other and to move your plot along, you're going to use scripts. These are all of your different scripts up here. You've got motion, looks, sound, events, control. We're not going to focus on all these today since this is the first time you've ever used Scratch. We're going to focus mostly on motion scripts, which is what causes your sprite to move, looks, sounds, events, and then possibly control scripts if we dive in that deep. So scripts kind of work like Lego blocks. Did you ever play with Legos when you were little?
Of course.
So what you'll do when you want to use a script is, I'm going to let you try this on your own. You're going to click it and then drag and drop it over here into your workspace. Okay. Now let's say that you wanted to add another script. You see how they kind of have like little edges and divots? You drag one over and they click together like Lego blocks.
Okay. Get rid of it.
Oh, that's a good question. So if you want to get rid of a script, you have to unhook them and then drag it back over and it'll delete it. There you go. Alright, so now we're going to move on and actually let you work on, we're going to choose your background and your characters, and then we will start adding in our scripts to make your characters interact and move your plot along. I'm going to let you choose your background first. So you've gone to the backdrop library.
Is there a pet store?
A pet store? I don't know. Alright, so as you heard Paul mention, he did decide that he wanted to have one of his settings in his story to be a pet store. We looked through the backdrop library on Scratch and he couldn't find exactly what he wanted, so I did direct him to do an online search so he could find exactly what he wanted for his narrative. So right here you can see he is looking through some Google Images trying to find exactly what he would like. After searching for a few minutes, he did find a backdrop that he liked, so I showed him how to download that image to his computer, and then we took that image and uploaded it into his Scratch project, and then he was able to use that as a backdrop. We did have to modify it slightly. We had to make the image just a little bit larger so that it would fill up the entire space for the backdrop. After he was happy with the backdrop that he chose, we then started looking for the characters that he would want to have in his story. He did decide to keep the cat character, and then we also looked through the sprite library and he chose a dog that he wanted to use in his story as well. Alright, so tell me what kind of plot you're thinking here.
Alright, so Jimmy the dog wants his special treats.
Okay.
And Fred the cat lives in the same house as Jimmy the dog. They live in the same house, and Jimmy's out of treats, and Fred's got treats. And Fred feels bad, so he's going to go to the pet store.
Okay, so let me ask you this. We can have more than one backdrop. So do you want to have the first backdrop be their house, and then they decide to go to the pet store?
Sure.
Okay, so let me show you how to do that. Up here at the top, if you click on your backdrop, and then go up here and click backdrops, we've got a blank one here. So we can add the house backdrop, and there should be one on here that we don't have to download.
Right.
School. Room. Which one do you like?
Room 3.
Alright, so this is going to be our first backdrop. So we'll put that first, and then this one, if you hit that X, you can just delete it. Alright, so Jimmy and Fred are starting at home.
Yep.
Are they talking to each other?
Jimmy is asking Fred where he last saw his treats.
Okay, so Jimmy's going to talk first.
Yes, Jimmy talks first.
Alright, so when you are ready to animate a sprite, you want to start with Fred first. So we're going to click on his picture, or Jimmy, and then go up here to our scripts. Now here's what we want to do. We have to show the program or tell the program when we want it to start the actual conversation. You're going to go to events, and you have a couple of different choices. You see how there's the green flag up here? I think that would probably be your best choice. So whenever whoever's looking at your program clicks on the green flag, it'll be the program's cue to get started.
So you just say when clicked.
Yep. So you put that over there. Now we are on Jimmy, and we want Jimmy to talk. So we're actually going to go to the looks. And then you've got different options. He can say this for 2 seconds or whatever you want.
He can say whatever I want for 2 seconds.
And we might, if it's...
And I can increase his time too?
Yes.
If I click on it? Alright, cool.
So type in what you want him to say. Okay, so we've got... What's his name?
Jimmy.
Jimmy asking Fred, Fred, have you seen my peanut butter treats? Now we want Fred to respond. So here's what we're going to have to do. We have to send a message to Fred so that he knows that it's his turn to talk. We're going to go to the events again, and we're going to send a message. So to do that, we're going to hit this, we're going to move this broadcast script over.
Okay.
And click it in. And that's going to send a message to Fred. So now we're going to go to Fred. And we don't want him to talk till he gets that message, right?
Right.
So we're going to do the when I receive.
When he receives message 1.
Yeah. And then now we can put in what we want him to say. So what do we want him to say back to Jimmy? So since these two characters are going to be talking, we probably want them to stay next to each other. So we're going to have Fred walk over to Jimmy. So after he says, yes, Jimmy, I saw you eat the last one yesterday. We can use one of these move or glides. So that he'll kind of like slowly go. And so what we'll do to decide where we want him to go is we can move him kind of where we want him to stand. And then if you click the little eye, it'll show you his coordinates. So right here, he's at negative 59, negative 111. So I'm going to have you type that in, negative 59. Actually, since that treat's going to be popping up, we probably don't want him to be quite that close, probably right there. So 1, negative 113. After we talked about the basic fundamentals of getting a sprite to move, inserting a backdrop, adding a new sprite, and getting a sprite to talk, I did show Paul how to use sounds, and I think he did use 2 different sounds in his project. We also talked about how to get a backdrop to change, and he does change the backdrop twice, I believe, in his project. And then he was ready to wrap things up.
I did it. I made a story.
Good job!